The next gentleman, Mark Holden, is, you can read his bio. He participated in law review in law school. He serves as general counsel to Koch Industries, and he's got a great bio. But what counts in the people in this room, he is, I would argue, with the exception of the President of the United States, the leading voice for the importance of reentry, the necessity of reentry as an economic justification. And so when we have the bishop and many people talk about the moral cancer of mass incarceration or failures to successfully reenter people into society, whether it's housing, employment, addiction, identification, the legal snares, access to medication. Mark Holden has made the argument powerfully, succinctly, that it's in America's national best economic interest to embark upon this challenge. So that I can't underscore enough the people in this room, and I always argue, this is not a Republican nor Democratic issue. This isn't a question of the left or the right. This is a question of us as a nation being a better people, answering our better angels. The next gentleman who's made that argument more forcefully than I would argue anyone in this nation, it's a great honor to have with us Mark Holden. You've got to do better than that. Mark Holden.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm like, who is he talking about, right? I mean, I hope I can live up to a little bit of that. But in all seriousness, it is an honor to be here today on behalf of Koch Industries. Get the mic right, thank you. It's an honor to be here on behalf of Koch, and I want to start out by, there are a number of people, I know at least one of you or two is sitting at this table who are returning citizens. And I just want to give everybody here who is a returning citizen, and those of you that work with them, I just want to give you a round of applause, because here's the deal. We're going to talk about a lot of things here today, and as the governor said, I'm going to talk about the economic case, but it's really a moral case. All of this is a moral case, and that's how you win hearts and minds. And so when returning citizens succeed, when we can get them back, get them working, make them feel whole, we all win. We all benefit, because we rise or fall together. We truly do. And this is not just some jargon. This is not some campaign speech, because I am totally apolitical, trust me. The reality is, Vince Lombardi said it best. It's not if you get knocked down, it's if you get up. And you all get up in a tough way, in a tough environment, in a tough society for people who offend. We're very judgy, we're very punitive, and we're going to get past that, I hope. But I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank all of you that have the courage to advocate for these people and work together with these returning citizens. It's a national and moral imperative. So, and I also want to thank the governor for his kind words, and for all of you that do the reentry work, because it is so important. And it's great that there are organizations like your alls that you work with that exist, that look past whatever missteps someone might have had in their life that got them caught up in our criminal justice system. Everybody here knows how easy it is to get caught up in that system. People who aren't here don't, but everybody here knows how easy it is. And it's just important that people look past that and don't judge people. Try to help them succeed. Try to help them move on. And it's not an economic case, it's a moral case, but we'll talk about the economics of it. So one question before I start off: why are we involved at Koch? Why are we interested in this? I've heard a lot of questions this morning. I've had a lot of questions over the past couple of years about this. Why does it take so long? Why does it take so long for all the states and the federal government to pass legislation, criminal justice reform legislation, which shows the 30-plus states that have done it, who have done it the best, every one of them can show, number one, their communities are safer communities. And that means for everybody in the community, the citizens, everybody else, law enforcement, everybody's safer. Crime rates go down. Violent crime rates go down. incarceration rates go down. The ridiculous amounts of money we spend on incarcerating people either who don't belong there to begin with or they're way too long, that goes down. Communities thrive. Families are reunited. This is like all good stuff. You think everybody be running for this, to be behind it. But it isn't that way. And why does it take so long? I guess it's because we're dealing with politicians. And no disrespect to a lot of great politicians who are here today, and some who aren't here, like Senator Booker, who's phenomenal. Can't say enough good things about him. You're very lucky, if you're a citizen of New Jersey, to have him for a senator. But a lot of elected officials, a lot of politicians, it's not that they don't care, but you got to know what motivates them. I'm from Koch. It's all about incentives we talk about, right? Well, think about it. I was talking with a gentleman earlier before I started talking here today, just now, about basically what are the incentives if you're a politician? It's to get elected, get votes, get money. And no disrespect, but I worked in a prison. I'm going to talk about that some. The prison that I worked in Worcester, Massachusetts, was filled with really poor, really uneducated white kids. And so you're talking about most of the people who end up getting prison time in this country, by and large, because we have a two-tier system, right? If you're rich and connected, you're going to be okay. And if you're poor, you're not. And I hate to say it, but you all probably know it better than me. Oftentimes, guilt and innocence, it may or may not be relevant. So if you put all that together, politicians want money, they want votes. Well, people who are in prison can't vote. When they get out, it's tough to get that restored. Their families usually are poor. They don't have money to give politicians, and they don't vote. So it's that old saying, I think it was Everett Dirksen, I don't even know the guy's name. Someone told me it, and I thought it was another guy who quoted it, and he corrected me. So for politicians, you got to bring the heat. Then they see the light. And that's why Koch's involved. That's the simple answer. We need all voices involved in this because this impacts all of us, every one of us. Everyone here is responsible for the system that was created. All of us. Everyone here is impacted by that system. And the good news is, everyone here, we can all work together to help fix it. And if you look at the history of our criminal justice system, if you look at the track of our federal criminal laws, just the federal criminal laws, not the state ones, since the founding of this country to the present, you went from 3 criminal laws to right now, in this country, we don't know how many federal criminal laws we have. We don't know. And when Congress has asked the Justice Department to give that answer, the Justice Department says, and only in Washington, D.C. would this be an acceptable answer. It's too hard. We can't do it. And Congress says, well, thank you for trying. But it's an estimated 4,500 to 6,000 federal criminal laws in this country. And so it's very easy to get tripped up. And it's very easy for a politician to be tough on crime. It's very hard if you're running against someone who says they're tough on crime, if they say you're soft on crime. But you know what? Both of those slogans, if we can come away with a lot of changes in the expungement laws and other things that I've been hearing about in probation, let's all resolve, if you're a politician, please never utter those words again. Tough on crime or soft on crime, they're meaningless. We need to be smart on crime, and we need to be soft on taxpayers, and we need to act morally to the least advantaged who are most impacted by this. That should be the slogan. And it is changing. And, you know, the bipartisan fix, well, it started, the mess we're in, was Reagan, it was Bush, and then Clinton. And so it's got to be a bipartisan fix. And we're seeing on the state level it is. New Jersey's done a lot of great stuff, and we're seeing at the federal level as well. As I mentioned, we've been working closely with a bipartisan coalition in the Senate and the House. And in the Senate, one of the leaders has been Senator Booker, along with Senator Leahy, Senator Whitehouse. And on the conservative side, you've got John Cornyn, Senator Cornyn, Senator Grassley, and Senator Lee. No one's ever going to mistake them for, bleeding heart liberals, trust me. But they're trying to do the right thing. And they all want to do the right thing because they've seen what works in their home states. But trying to drag along Congress at the federal level, there's some level of unaccountability. And one person says something about one violent crime somewhere else, it had nothing to do with anything we're talking about, the whole Willie Horton thing, we know this, that can kill it. So it's very frustrating. But, you know, we're going to keep fighting it. We're not going to stop because the states are doing it more than the federal government, and it's a moral imperative, as I said. So we're involved at Koch in criminal justice reform. There's a moral case, a constitutional case, and a fiscal case. The moral case I just talked about, it's a two-tier system. If you're rich, you're fine. If you're poor, you're not. And no matter what your sentence is, if you go to prison, honestly, a lot of times, we've heard it here today, it can be a life sentence because we don't ever let people forget that. And that's not right. It's wrong, and it's ruining our country. It's tearing our country apart. Now, we've got people, not just me, but Judge Kaczynski, who's a conservative judge in the Ninth Circuit, Judge Rakoff, who's in the Southern District of New York, federal judge, well-respected, both of them. They have both publicly stated recently, and many others have as well, they are concerned because people are pleading guilty to crimes they did not commit. I mean, let that sink in, right? So we talked about why does it take so long to fix this? And then you look at that and you say, why is it so easy for people to go to prison in this country? I mean, that's not what it's supposed to be all about. Because the other case that we're very focused on, the moral case I just laid out, is the constitutional case. 40% of the Bill of Rights deals with criminal justice reform. Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Eighth Amendment. And they were sending us a message. The founders didn't get a lot of stuff, didn't get everything right. They got a lot of stuff right, got a lot of stuff really wrong. But they were saying, beware, the greatest infringement on life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness is going to come through government overreach in the criminal justice system. And they're right. That's what's happened. And the reality is the bar should be very high for anyone to ever lose their life, liberty, property, or pursuit of happiness in this country. It really should. It's become far too easy, and the bar should also be very high, or very low, excuse me. Once you've paid your debt to society, you come back, you're a returning citizen, let's go get it. Let's help you succeed. And we're not doing that. So we've got it pretty much exactly wrong in a lot of ways in our system right now. But the good news is we have the power to change that, and we're changing it in the states. Not as fast as we'd all like, but it's starting. And it's going to continue because politicians will feel the heat, and they like success. And when successful things happen, no one gets to the front of the parade more quickly than a politician. It's just the way it is. The fiscal case I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about that more in a second, but really the fiscal case is the moral case. You've heard the stats. We got 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prison population. We're the largest jailer in absolute numbers of any country in the world, more than anyone in civilization. And we're the largest among industrialized nations per rate of incarceration. That costs us, incarceration, $80 billion a year to incarcerate people. That's 3 to 4 times more per capita than we spend on education in this country. You are what you eat, you definitely are what you spend. What does that say about us? It says we got our priorities wrong. So, some other stats that are very troubling real quickly. We've got 1 in 14 children in this country have a parent in prison. We've got 1 in 3 Americans with a criminal record. We have between people incarcerated in this country and people under some type of supervisory release, probation, 1 in 34 adults in this country. We've got as many people in this country with a criminal record as we do people with college degrees. Doesn't make sense, people. And you all are success stories that show how we can get out of this mess. And it gets frustrating having to rely on politicians to do this. But the good news is, a lot of these things we're going to talk about in reentry, we don't need an act of Congress. We just need an act of conscience. And we can make things happen. We can make a change. And the states are leading the way. New Jersey's done a really good job in a lot of respects. It's a start. I know it's frustrating for some, but with regard to reentry relief, drug courts, things of that nature. And they've been able to reduce incarceration rates, and they've been able to reduce spending on incarceration, and most importantly, keep crime rates down. Their crime rates are going down. So the lesson is, You don't have to incarcerate a lot of people to make them safer. You just have to give them a sane, just, moral system and some hope, as we've been talking about. And really, our criminal justice reform work, 4 guideposts. One is everything we do must enhance public safety, what we've been talking about. And the states that do criminal justice reform the best have the safest states, safest citizenry. It's just the way it works. The stats show it. Number 2, everything needs to be consistent with the Bill of Rights. We've talked about that. We're not honoring it now. We're really, in my opinion, shredding the Bill of Rights with a lot of things to do. Number 3, we must ensure we have a system that treats everybody, and that's everybody, the accused, the convicted, the incarcerated, their families, victims, law enforcement, everybody as individuals and with dignity and respect. As individuals is key. And then lastly, we just need to all recognize that everybody is capable and worthy of redemption, period. All of us, everybody. And I think we need to remember the words. I know everybody here probably has heard of Brian Stevenson, amazing person. I mean, his line is, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. You gotta have some humility, and I know we in this room do, but a lot of people don't. But that last point about redemption, that speaks to reentry reform. And with 95% of the people coming out, it's our best interest. Put aside the morality of it, just talk fiscally and just talk public safety. It's our best interest that these folks coming out of prison, the returning citizens, come back better than they went in, so they don't reoffend, because there's human, societal, and fiscal costs with that. And so we think this is a moral imperative, because having people be more prosperous, having people have a job, training, something to do in prison besides become a better criminal or just sit around all day, that's not going to work. We need to give them training in prisons, like you've talked about earlier today on a panel. And that's happening in a lot of states right now, because they've seen the need for that. For example, earlier this year, I was in Baltimore, Maryland. There's a great organization there called Project Jumpstart. And what they do there, it's the building trades, the Maryland Department of Labor, and a number of construction companies have come together. They don't have enough people to do the skilled trades. So they give opportunities to kids in impoverished neighborhoods, guys coming out of prison, to learn how to weld, to be an electrician, that type of thing. And lo and behold, the recidivism rate in that program over 10 years is in single digits. There's other programs. You guys talked about some of them today with Urals. St. Mark has a very low recidivism rate as well. But there's Bard College Initiative. They have single-digit recidivism rates. This is all education and jobs is what we need. And that's what needs to keep happening. So before I get to kind of the meat of what we've done specifically at Koch about these issues, I just want a call to action, all of you here. You've got congressmen and senators working on your behalf. I think people in your delegation are pretty much aligned on criminal justice reform, but make your voices heard loud about that. Yesterday, Speaker Ryan, I don't know if you saw, he gave a speech about the dysfunction in Washington, D.C. in political discourse in this country and what a mess it is. It was a Q&A afterwards that he had with a number of staffers, and one of the questions was, what other policy decision did you regret in your career? And he said, I was too tough on crime. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that it's a poverty issue. It's an issue of people who make mistakes and then pay their debt and then can never get out of prison. They can never get out of, the prison that we create once they're out and they can't get jobs. And he said, I believe in redemption, and our law has to believe in redemption. So there's a lot of hope here now, but I think they need to keep hearing messages from all of you, activists, others who are interested in this. So, as I said, the whole idea of reentry reform, it's really all about humility. It's about being proximate to the issues, as Brian Stevenson would say. I grew up in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I worked in a prison when I was in college, high school and college, for a couple of years to pay for college. And when I went to work at the prison, I saw at least 10 kids that I went to junior high, high school with that I'd lost track of because they dropped out of school and now they were in prison. And these kids went to the same school I did. They grew up in the same neighborhood. They went to the same church. The only difference I could tell between me and them was my parents. If I got out of line, they kicked my butt. I had jobs from an early age. I had to go to church every day. I had to do all these things that I thought were so awful. But it's what saved me, really, because it's what President Obama said last summer when he was in Oklahoma, when he visited the federal prison there but for the grace of God go I. And so for me, I've been proximate to these issues for a long time. And so everybody believes in second chances. They say they do. I truly believe they do, but we don't act that way. I know President Obama does. I know President Bush did. So how do we get there? Well, we're seeing it here with the work Governor McGreevey and his team are doing, just having the courage to chip away at these issues. Governor McGreevey's another guy that Vince Lombardi would admire. He was knocked down, but he got up. And he did a better thing. He made himself better. He's made his community better. He's made us all better. And he's a hero for that. But it takes time. It's the way the Grand Canyon was created. It's the water over the stone. You got to be persistent. You always got to keep coming back. You can't just think it's going to be a one-time thing, because I'm telling you, this issue is one that politically it can go sideways so quickly. So the best thing to do, advocate for yourselves, but then everybody in this room just keep doing the right thing. And then we have these success stories that are sitting here today. Publicize those more. But all of you pushing this system, doing it a person at a time, and changing hearts and minds at a time, that's the way to go. Talked about proximity to the problem. The bottom line is, what we really need to understand is, I'm repeating things now that people have said already today. People come out of prison, want a job, they want a chance, they want a second chance. I know I've had a lot of second chances in my life, if I want to be honest about things. What you laid out earlier, John, about your situation, could have easily been me. And so, thank you for what you've done, too. See, you know, it's funny, in all the movies, in Hollywood, everywhere else, it's always this, everyone loves a redemption story. But then when we start talking about returning citizens, it's like, oh my God, no, we can't do this. So we need to make this something that Hollywood would want to cover, and I think they might, because this is the real stuff. And I tell my friends in Wichita, some of them when we first started doing this over 10, 12 years ago now, and very good people, some of them very Christian, that ask why. And I said, look, I don't know the Bible so good, but there's this thing in Matthew, and I forget the verse 35, or whatsoever you do to the least of my brother, that you do unto me. When I was in prison, you came to visit me. I said, that's why you do this. I mean, you go to church all the time. I don't go hardly at all. I know that. We do it for that reason. We do it because it's the right thing, and it lifts us all up, and we all succeed. And the reality is, jobs are the key. That's what's going to change all this. We know that besides criminal justice reform, we know we need education reform, we need opportunity reform, we need a lot of reform. And jobs are the key. I have a friend in Wichita, Kansas, David Gilkey. He and his wife, Lynn, are ex-offenders, phenomenal people that have turned their lives around. They now run an organization called Rise Up for Youth. It's a youth mentoring organization. Phenomenal success. And his slogan, I said, you need to copyright this, but then he told me he stole it from someone else, so we didn't do that. But it's called Rise Up for Youth, and he says, nothing stops a bullet like a job. Pretty simple, but that's the key. So the reality is, to stay out of prison to begin with, a lot of people could have benefited from more accountability maybe in their home structure, but definitely better education opportunities, better job opportunities, right? And we know for sure when people coming out, the best way to do it is to get them jobs, get them opportunities, get them support in the community so they don't reoffend, so they don't do that. They go on the straight and narrow path, become productive citizens like that one gentleman paying taxes now. How do you like that, huh? But no, that's good stuff. But anyway, the reality is the last thing is we've got this moral obligation. We need to do this and stop judging people. And we need to remove all these barriers to opportunity that we put in people's paths. And you'd think once you get out of prison it would end. It doesn't. We over-criminalize behavior. We overcharge people with alleged behavior. We then over-sentence people to that behavior that they plead guilty to or are found guilty of. They're over-incarcerated. Then the last part, they're overburdened when they get out of prison. There are over 50,000 collateral consequences to a criminal conviction in this country. That's a lot. New Jersey's kind of doing better than the other states, but it's got over 1,000 last time I checked. And it just makes, as you all know, all the things we're talking about. We're not talking about, man, I'd like to have season tickets to the Giants. We're talking about basic human necessities, right? That people aren't allowed to be able to get, like a job, housing, loans, licenses. I got a friend in DC who was in prison for like 14 years, been out 10 years, turned his life around, he got 2 kids. He can't go visit them at some school events sometimes. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. This gets back to the individual justice, why we need to fix this, because we need them to be seen as not ex-convicts, not even ex-offenders, they're returning citizens. And in our country, the beauty of it is, what we need to be about is not about reprisal, not about revenge, not about retribution. It's got to be rehabilitation, it's got to be reform, and it's got to be redemption. And if you take that lens, if you do that, there's not a way that anybody will be able to oppose more reentry reform, because we're not allowing people to fully partake in American life. We're not treating them like citizens. We're not acting like they're citizens. And it leads to that, we heard today, sometimes people get into the criminal system because of hopelessness. When we treat them the same way, then they get out, and it's worse now because of this scarlet letter F that's tattooed on them forever. Why do we think anything's going to be any different? And the sad thing is, but the good news is, when you do give someone a chance, when you do allow them to rise above whatever their past might be, we've experienced it at Koch, they're damn good employees. So we've talked about all these other things. I just want to talk about the job situation, because it is the key. We know we've got problems generally with employment in our country right now, and it's difficult to be out there, especially if you're coming right out of prison. But you know, we banned the box at Koch several years ago, and we did it because Charles truly believes, Charles Koch, our CEO, everything that I'm talking about is something he believes. He believes in giving people second chances. We've seen firsthand the imperfections of our system. We've seen firsthand with our resources, our employees almost got run over and sent to prison for 30 years for something they didn't do. So we've seen all that. You got that part of it. And then we've also, like I said, seen the number of laws proliferate. But that's all part of the reason. But the reality is, we're a global employer, right? We got 100,000 employees. We've got to compete around the world. And that stat I said earlier, 1 in 3 have some type of criminal record. So if you want to be competitive in a global environment, a global marketplace, if you want to be able to compete for the best so you can be successful as a business, what business person would exclude 1 out of every 3 potential people that were going to apply for a role? It makes no sense. I mean, put aside the morality, it makes no sense. And so we've banned the box, and it's worked for us. Now, people talk about, should the government ban the box? I think the government should definitely ban the box for those jobs that they control. They should set an example, because these collateral consequences we're talking about, the collateral consequences of a conviction are imposed by the government. They've set these things up, these barriers. And the reality is, there probably need to be some limitations on certain offenders not getting certain roles, even when they return home, but do it individually. And then employers would like to hire people. I think they'd like to expand their workforce, but then they're limited by, if they have a government contract or a relationship with a certain government agency, they can't hire these people who have criminal records. So the government, they should ban the box on their own applications. I totally think they should do that. And I think employers should look at it closely. It's worked for us. You still do a background check near the end of the process, but I got to tell you, anybody that I've ever dealt with, and I've been with the company now going on 21 years, if they have an issue, they front it early on. They're going to tell you, hey, something's coming up. They're not waiting for the background check. And we've just learned over time, again, for all our experiences in the system, my personal experiences and people I work with, that it's really easy to get tripped up. We want to know the whole person. We need to hire the best people possible, the best workers. Not the best workers with a criminal record, and not the best workers without a criminal record. We want the best workers, period, the best people. And again, I think employers, if they're here today, should look at that closely. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you know, it's always good to take a chance on someone. And this is a profound, meaningful way that you can reverse this trend of people getting back in the cycle of incarceration and despair. And for us, I tell this all the time. People ask me, how's it worked out? I said, it's worked out great. I said, you know, I got an email from one of my friends. We've just hired another guy who's just getting out of county jail to one of our businesses in Wichita. And people with criminal records who have come to work for us, I mean, there's some that haven't worked out, but that happens. But most of them, a lot of them, they're the most humble, hungry, hardworking, dedicated, loyal people, good workers. And then we've hired people from the best schools, which would exclude me, I went to UMass, but we've hired people from the best schools with sterling recommendations, beautiful experience, and they're terrible employees. I mean, they're whiny, they're entitled. And these aren't the lawyers I'm talking about. I mean, lawyers have that in their DNA. And some of them lack integrity. They've stolen from us. So our point of view is, look, everybody's got a story. We all do. And like I said, I could easily have been on the other side of the bars when I was a kid. One of my good friends in Wichita is a prosecutor, and he's very much committed to the issues we're talking about here today. And his line is, none of us are innocent, we just haven't been caught yet. And he wasn't laughing. I mean, that's true. So that's what needs to happen. You know, we've just seen it. It can turn people's lives around. It's good business sense. It's good for the employee. It's good for your community. It's good for your soul. And the bottom line is the fact that you have a criminal record doesn't define you. It shouldn't define you. And we need to start recognizing that in our country and how we treat people. And we need to welcome them back with open arms. And that includes getting them jobs and housing and things like that. Finally, and I'll stop talking, I promise. A couple people mentioned it's Holy Thursday. And so that means tomorrow is Good Friday. And then do the math or whatever. It's going to be Easter Sunday. So it's a time of renewal. And I just want to close with an excerpt that I think summarizes the moral case for second chances, reentry, and redemption much better than I ever could. It's from Pope Francis's speech at the Philadelphia jail that he visited last fall. And he said, life is a journey along different roads, different paths, which leave their marks on us. Life means getting our feet dirty from the dust-filled roads of life and history. All of us need to be cleansed, to be washed. The Lord tells us clearly with a sign. He washes our feet so we can come back to the table from which he wishes no one to be excluded. The table which is spread for all of us and to which all of us are invited. This time in your life can have only one purpose, to give you a hand in getting back on the right road, to give you a hand to help you rejoin society. All of us are part of that effort. All of us are invited to encourage, help, and enable your rehabilitation. A rehabilitation which everyone seeks and desires, inmates and their families, correctional authorities, social and educational programs. A rehabilitation which benefits and elevates the morale of the entire community. May the knowledge of that fact inspire us to live in solidarity, to support one another, and seek the best for others. So I just want to say thank you again. Congratulations to all the returning citizens. Congratulations to everybody in this room that's working with them to make their communities better. And thanks very much for all you do to help people get back on the road to success. May God bless all of you. Thank you. Yeah.
So Mark has been gracious enough to take questions. Governor Florio, do you have a question? What? Oh, you do not? He's inspired.
Oh, good.
So, does anybody have any questions? All right, wait. All right,
Yeah.
can we do this respectfully, please? If anybody wants to come up, somebody who hasn't spoken before, anybody, one at a time. Anybody? We have Les? Do you want to ask a question? Okay. Well, Mark, Pierre, can you talk a little bit about what you do? Come on, seriously. Just explain what you do.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pierre Leandre. I'm currently, explain something? Okay. How you doing, Mark? My name is Pierre Leandre. I'm currently the Director of Compliance for the City of Jersey City. My Assistant Director here was Kevin Kane. Currently, our mission is pretty much whenever developers are given tax abatement to construct projects in the city, essentially we have to make sure that they adhere to their project labor agreements as well as our project employment and contracting agreements. So essentially, that's what we do. We just enforce, basically make sure that at least these developers are adhering to what we're trying to accomplish, which is to get a bunch of constituents in Jersey City jobs. And currently, we have been doing that successfully for Government of Greevy. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, and Pierre's been a wonderful addition. Jen? And this is former Commissioner Jen Velez, who I bow to, who's been so tremendous for our program. Let me just give you, I got to give you a plug. She said she wouldn't have asked the question. Jen, when she was commissioner, there was a ban, and John knows this far more articulately than I, there was a ban that you were ineligible for welfare, Mark, for 28 days when you came out of prison. And because of the success of our program, Jen obliterated the 28-day waiver and has now made it so that people can have benefits as soon as they walk out. She deserves a round of applause. Jen Velez.
Thank you. Mark, I'm not sure if it's a question as much as maybe a call, your call to action. I think your message is really important, really compassionate. My question is, what forum do you have in the larger business community to get that message across so that employers who can employ, you have employees all around the world, you have a tremendous forum at Koch Industries to get that message out, to be a more compassionate society, to give people that second chance. And I think collectively we can voice that, but the forum that Koch Industries has it can't be overstated. So whether it's a question or just a imposition maybe to do that in the business community. It's a really important message.
Yeah, well, thank you. No, I agree. And I am pretty amazing. I think that was the point of your question, so no, I'm kidding. No, seriously, we talk a lot about this. We go to a lot of different seminars and meetings and symposiums. We write op-eds on it. I talk to people locally where I live in Wichita, and it's just getting the word out. And I'm happy to do whatever we can, and we try to get it out. Charles Koch has written about this. He's a big proponent of it as well. We're doing what we can for sure. Oh yeah, no, we do all that. We do
Chamber of
job
Commerce,
fairs.
small business, like all of the business forums that exist. So the advocacy community can partner with the business community. But if the business community takes a lead in this, it's going to
Right, no,
have a huge
we're
impact.
involved. There's the national, it's the NELP, the National Employment Law Project, I think is the name. They've done a lot to bring together different businesses that are doing this, to highlight them. There's a few of them are like Bed Bath & Beyond, Walmart, a couple others, big ones as well, and us. So there are a number of them. But again, a lot of employers are either reluctant to do it, they're small businesses, they don't have the resources to do all these. They want to know up front because they don't want to wait till the end. They go through the hiring process and then find out someone has a record. But a lot of it's driven also by government restrictions on certain jobs that these companies do. So a lot of it could be, again, the government has a lot of power to reduce these collateral consequences that don't make sense, or apply them only to certain levels of offenders for a certain level of a time, not like in some places forever or 5 years or all things like that. That to me doesn't make sense. It needs to be case by case. So I think it's got to be multifaceted between business community, advocates, and then putting pressure on the government with success stories. Say, why wouldn't you want more of this? This is good stuff. That's what needs to happen.
Thank you. Terry?
Hello, everyone. Mr. Holden, how you doing, Governor? Can you introduce yourself, Terry? Yes, I'm Terry Coleman. I served a substantial amount of time, more than a decade and a half, in prison. You raised a question about housing and the ban the box. I wanted to know if legislation has asked that ban the box be stretched as far as to apartment applications, because a lot of times we get denied because they have that question on when you apply for an apartment and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I imagine it hasn't been.
Yeah, thank you. And I just also, we're really graced to have Senator Cunningham join with us, who was the sponsor of the Ban the Box in the state of New Jersey. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Terry. Bill?
Sure. I'm Bill Armbruster. I'm an alumnus of St. Peter's and a member of the Board of Regents here. Just following up on Jen Velez's question about business, what about groups such as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Business Roundtable, bringing it to their attention?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that that's a mixed bag is the answer, but we've been pushing it.
And I think, Bill, it's also important that both national parties, the Republican National Party, the Democratic National Party, the Democratic Governors Association, the Republican Governors Association, we make this a strong issue on both sides of the aisle to support, like my dear friend Lenny Ward is here from Parole and Parole Commissioners and Corrections, but part of this is making this a national issue. And so we're going to hear from some great people talking about women, but to the extent that we can make this a national issue, we strengthen Mark's argument. Two more people, Ron.
Hi, my name is Ron Johnson, and I bring you greetings from Nashville, Tennessee. And I work for an organization called the Oasis Center. I'm a youth prevention specialist. And what I do is I work with young boys who find themselves caught up with the law, and instead of the juvenile system sending them to juvenile, they send them to us as an alternative. And over the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, we've been touted as the #1 non-recidivism program of its kind in the country. I'm proud to say that. But I wanted to ask a question, and my question is this. What are we doing for the youth that are caught up in the systemic things that they're in, and what can Koch, or what are Koch willing to do to help that cause?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for what you're doing. That's great stuff. So you're talking about juvenile justice, keeping kids out of the system to begin with, that type of thing. We sponsor a number of different organizations around the country that do that. Whether it's in Kansas, where I live, we've got Youth Entrepreneurs of Kansas, we've got Big Brothers Big Sisters, Rise Up for Youth, which was the Gilkeys organization, Boys and Girls Clubs, many other organizations like that. And then we also sponsor some educational programs as well. And then we do that, that's Wichita example. There are many other examples we do it as well. And then we've got other organizations we work with that support that particular market segmentation, youth, and we also are working on juvenile justice reform. So those are some of the things we are doing. And if you have a business card or information you'd like to share with me, I'd love to get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last question? Thanks, Linda.
Linda Gammon, retired criminal probation officer from Bergen County Probation, okay? I've been there for 41 years and a supervisor for 27 years, so you are preaching to the choir. However, what I would ask of you is that you are in a unique position to be able to reach out to the business community. Yeah. We all know about politics. We all hear the phrase, and we're all so tired of hearing that, oh, spread the word, spread the word. You, sir, have the possibility with other large corporations to reach out to other businessmen, business corporations, and support those politicians who agree with this philosophy, rather than those who do not. You can affect the change better than all of us put together. So, in saying that, we'd love to have you come speak at Bergen County. Okay. We'd love for you to help and contribute to light the fire among the business people and the corporations.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. And let me just, again, thank Mark, because Mark being here is a real testament to us and what we're achieving. And by the way, can we have a round of applause for Mayor Stack, who's still here in the backyard, the back of the room? I'm not commenting the fact that he ate 3 sandwiches. I'm not going to mention that. But when you have somebody like and the chairman, the great chairman of the State Parole Board, Jim Pelosis, can you stand up? Let me just say, Mark, there isn't a man who walks this walk with greater humility than our chairman. Let me just say, when he was going through a difficult time in his life, he went down to Haiti to help the refugees. You don't find men like the chairman of the State Parole Board, Jim Pelosi. Can we have a round of applause? So what if he's a misguided Republican? That's all right. It's Holy Thursday. There's hope. But again, to Mark Holden, I just want to say thank you. Having somebody of Mark's prestige, his ability, and his voice meant a lot to this conference here today. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, everybody.